Welcome back to the channel Rare Coins All World, everyone. If you're new here, you've just stumbled upon the best place for uncovering hidden treasures in your pocket change. Today, we're zooming in on a coin that millions of people have seen, held, or spent without thinking twice, the humble 1976 Lincoln penny. It may look ordinary at first glance, but don't be too quick to dismiss it. Because some versions of this coin have sold for absolutely shocking amounts of money. Stick around, because this is one coin you won't want to overlook. Let's begin with a bit of context. The year 1976 was a big one for the United States. It marked the nation's bicentennial, 200 years since the signing of the Declaration of Independence. While the Lincoln penny itself didn't receive a commemorative redesign like the quarter or half dollar, the 1976 penny is still tied to this historic year. And when it comes to coin collecting, anything connected to important dates often sparks increased interest from collectors. The 1976 Lincoln penny continued the long-running design that first appeared in 1909. On the front of the coin, we have the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, created by Victor David Brenner. His initials, VDB, appear subtly at the bottom of Lincoln's shoulder on some versions. On the reverse side, we see the Lincoln Memorial, a design by Frank Gasparo that was introduced in 1959 to replace the original wheat ears. If you look closely at the reverse, you can even spot a tiny representation of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, making it one of the few coins to feature the same person on both sides. At first glance, the 1976 penny doesn't seem special. After all, over 8 billion of them were minted between the Philadelphia and Denver mints. That's a staggering number. So why would anyone pay attention to this specific year? The secret lies not just in the date, but in the details, the condition, the mint mark, and most importantly, rare errors that occurred during the minting process. Let's talk about those mint marks. Some of the 1976 pennies were produced in Philadelphia and don't carry a mint mark, while others were made in Denver and have a small D under the year. In general, these mint marks don't drastically change the value, but if a coin has no mint mark and shows signs of an error or is in perfect uncirculated condition, then the story starts to get interesting. Now, let's focus on the real stars of the show, error coins. These are coins that were struck incorrectly, whether by misalignment, double dies, off-center strikes, or problems with the planchet, the blank piece of metal the coin is made from. These minting mistakes are rare, and they make a coin instantly more valuable to collectors. Imagine a penny with a double date, or one with part of the design missing due to a misstrike. Suddenly, what looked like a worthless coin becomes a sought-after prize. Collectors are also drawn to the overall condition of a coin. A 1976 penny that's been rolling around in drawers and pockets for decades probably won't fetch more than its face value. But one that has been perfectly preserved, showing no signs of wear, with crisp detail and rich copper luster, that's another story entirely. These pristine coins are called uncirculated, and they can be worth far more than anyone expects. And here's something many people don't know: starting in 1982, pennies began to be made mostly of zinc with only a thin copper coating. But in 1976, they were still made of 95% copper. That alone makes these older pennies more interesting to metal enthusiasts and scrap collectors, since they contain more intrinsic value than later coins. Still, for coin collectors, it's the rare variants and conditions that command serious money, not just the metal content. So, how do you know if you have a valuable 1976 penny in your hands? First, check the condition. Is it clean, bright, and free from scratches or dents? Next, look for any oddities, doubling, missing letters, misaligned prints. And finally, look for anything unusual in the surface, edges, or overall shape of the coin. If you spot something strange, don't dismiss it. Sometimes, that little detail can make all the difference. Throughout the years, coin auctions have seen surprising results for certain Lincoln pennies, especially those with recognized errors or exceptional mint condition. Collectors are willing to pay handsomely for coins that are rare, unusual, or historically significant. And now, for the part you've all been waiting for. You might be wondering, what is the absolute highest value ever recorded for a 1976 Lincoln penny? Believe it or not, one exceptionally rare and flawless example of the 1976 Lincoln penny, possibly with a rare minting error and in brilliant uncirculated condition, was sold to a private collector for a jaw-dropping sum of $44,000. Yes, you heard that right. 1 cent turned into $44,000. So, next time you check your spare change, don't just glance at the coins. Take a closer look. That ordinary-looking penny might just be hiding an extraordinary secret. And who knows? You might be holding a tiny treasure worth a fortune. Today, we're diving into one of the most underestimated coins in U.S. history, the 1973 Lincoln penny. It's small. It's copper. And chances are, you've probably held one without realizing what it could truly be worth. But hang tight, because by the end of this video, you'll find out just how valuable this unassuming coin can be. Let's unlock the mystery behind the 1973 Lincoln penny. Let's go back in time for a moment. The year is 1973, gas is cheap, bell-bottoms are in fashion, and the Vietnam War is nearing its end. While the nation was going through political and cultural change, the U.S. Mint was doing what it always does, producing coins for circulation. Over 5.5 billion Lincoln pennies were struck that year between the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints. That's right, billions. So how can a coin that's so common possibly be rare or valuable? The answer lies in the details, the minting process, the errors, and the quality of the strike. These tiny variables are what separate a regular penny from a rare collectible. The 1973 Lincoln cent features the same classic design created decades earlier. On the front, you'll see the iconic image of President Abraham Lincoln, the first real person to appear on a regular U.S. coin. The design was created by Victor David Brenner and first issued in 1909 to celebrate Lincoln's 100th birthday. On the reverse, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959, where if you look closely, you can even see the tiny figure of Lincoln seated inside the memorial. It's a beautiful detail most people never notice. Now, let's talk about the mints. In 1973, pennies were struck at 3 different facilities: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, marked with a D; and San Francisco, with an S. While most 1973 pennies are incredibly common, a few special factors make some of them incredibly rare and valuable. First, let's talk about condition. The vast majority of 1973 pennies went straight into circulation. They were used in vending machines, dropped in jars, and jingled in millions of pockets. As a result, finding one in perfect, uncirculated condition is tough. But when a coin survives in what collectors call mint state, with no wear and a sharp, clean strike, it instantly stands out. Second, mint errors. This is where things get interesting. Every so often, the U.S. Mint produces a coin with a flaw, a small mistake during the manufacturing process. These can include double dies, off-center strikes, missing letters, wrong planchets, and more. Most people never even notice these errors, but collectors? They go wild for them. A single error can multiply the value of a penny by thousands of times. One of the most desirable errors on a 1973 penny is a double die obverse, where the image and inscriptions on the front appear slightly doubled due to a misalignment in the die. These types of coins are highly collectible because they are rare, and the doubling is visible even to the naked eye. Another feature collectors look for is a full red color. Since pennies are made mostly of copper, they tend to darken over time. But some 1973 cents still have their brilliant red, freshly minted appearance. These red coins are graded higher and are far more valuable than their darker, brown-toned counterparts. The top grading agencies like PCGS and NGC assign coins a number between 1 and 70. A 1973 Lincoln cent that scores a perfect grade, especially with a red luster and 0 blemishes, is a serious prize. And don't forget the proof coins. In 1973, proof sets were made for collectors. These were not meant for circulation. They were struck using specially polished dies and planchets to create a mirror-like surface. These proof coins, especially those with the S mint mark, can also be worth a premium, but even among proof coins, it's the errors and top grades that bring in the big bucks. So, what should you look for if you think you have a valuable 1973 penny? Start by examining the date and mint mark. Then check the color, redder is better. After that, look closely for any irregularities in the design. If something looks off, doubling, misalignment, or even slight fading in the letters, it could be a rare error. Lastly, consider the condition. Is it scratched or worn? Or is it crisp, shiny, and nearly perfect? Here's something to remember: just because a coin is old doesn't mean it's rare. But when you combine age, condition, rarity, and error features, that's when the magic happens. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. You might be wondering, just how much can a 1973 Lincoln penny be worth if it ticks all the right boxes? Well, one particular 1973 penny, with a combination of mint error and near-perfect preservation, was sold at auction for a breathtaking total of $47,000, yes. 1 cent turned into $47,000. It's the ultimate example of how something so small, so ordinary, can become something extraordinary. So next time you come across a handful of loose change, take a moment to look closely at your pennies. You never know, the next big treasure might be hiding right under your nose. Today, we're diving deep into the world of one of the most collected and widely circulated coins in the United States, the Lincoln penny. But this isn't just any Lincoln cent. We're talking about the 1981 Lincoln penny, a coin so common you might think it's worthless, until you discover the hidden gems that make some of them incredibly rare and shockingly valuable. If you have a 1981 penny lying around in your drawer, wallet, or even stuffed inside an old piggy bank, don't dismiss it too quickly. What looks like a simple coin could actually be a hidden treasure, and by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why. Let's rewind for a second to set the stage. The year was 1981. Ronald Reagan had just been elected president. The world was changing. But while big political shifts were taking place, the U.S. Mint was quietly producing what would become one of the final full copper Lincoln cents in history. That's right, most 1981 pennies were struck using 95% copper and 5% zinc, just like they had been for decades. But little did the public know, big changes were coming the very next year. By 1982, the composition of the penny changed forever. Due to rising copper prices, the mint began producing pennies with a core made of cheaper zinc and a thin copper coating. This means the 1981 Lincoln cent was one of the last of its kind, a farewell to a true copper classic. And that already makes it special, but let's get into the real reason you're here, the hidden value in the 1981 Lincoln penny. First, take a look at the front of the coin. You'll see the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln, the design created by Victor David Brenner, first introduced in 1909. His portrait is centered perfectly with the date, 1981, struck clearly beside it. Look below the date, and you might notice a tiny mint mark. D for Denver, an S for San Francisco, or no mark at all, which means it was minted in Philadelphia. Now, here's where things get interesting. In 1981, the U.S. Mint produced an enormous number of pennies, over 13 billion, to be exact. That's a massive number. But not all of them were created equal. A small percentage came out with rare minting errors or unique features that turned these ordinary coins into collectors' dreams. One of the most sought-after versions of the 1981 penny is the Type 2 proof struck at the San Francisco Mint. What's the difference between Type 1 and Type 2? It all comes down to the clarity of the mint mark. Type 1 proof pennies have a blurry, filled, S mint mark, while Type 2 coins have a sharply defined, clear S. It might seem like a small detail, but collectors care a lot. And the Type 2 version is far more rare and valuable, but that's not all. The real treasures are the error coins and high-grade specimens. Let me explain. Sometimes, a penny leaves the mint with a striking mistake, a double die, an off-center image, or even being printed on the wrong type of metal. These errors are rare and completely unintentional, which makes them incredibly valuable to collectors. For example, a 1981 penny with noticeable doubling on the word Liberty or In God We Trust can catch the attention of serious buyers. And off-center strikes, where Lincoln's head is pushed awkwardly to one side, can sell for hundreds or even thousands, then there's the matter of condition. This is where the true value skyrockets. A coin that has been circulated, passed from hand to hand, collecting scratches and wear, might not be worth much more than a penny. But a mint state 1981 penny, preserved perfectly with no signs of wear, is a different story. These coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70. A coin that grades MS 67 or higher is extremely rare, and extremely valuable. In fact, if your 1981 penny still has its original reddish shine, no visible marks, and razor-sharp details, you might be holding a top-tier collectible. Red copper coins are the most desirable, followed by red-brown and then brown. A full red coin with no blemishes? That's the jackpot. Let's also not forget the 1981 proof coins. These were never intended for circulation. They were specially made for collectors using highly polished dies and planchets, resulting in a beautiful, mirror-like finish. If you have a 1981 proof penny in perfect condition, especially a Type 2 with a sharp S, you could be looking at a coin that's worth far more than face value. And now, after all that, here's the part you've been waiting for. Out of the billions of pennies struck in 1981, there is one that stands out from the rest, a flawless specimen, with the perfect combination of condition, color, and rarity. This single Lincoln cent shocked collectors and stunned the market when it sold at auction for a breathtaking total of $42,000. That's right. 1 cent $42,000. So the next time you spot a 1981 penny in your change, don't toss it aside. Examine it. Check the mint mark. Look for unusual features. See if it still has that brilliant red glow. Because one tiny detail could turn an ordinary penny into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Today, we're unraveling the secret behind the 1971 Lincoln penny, a coin that's more than 50 years old, yet hiding a value you'd never believe. Stay with us till the end, because what you're about to learn might just inspire you to check every penny you've got at home. Let's set the scene. It's the early 1970s. America is changing. Vietnam, Watergate, civil rights movements, a turbulent time in U.S. history. Amidst all this, the U.S. Mint continues doing its job, quietly producing billions of coins every year. The Lincoln cent, bearing the image of one of America's greatest presidents, continues its long run since its first issue in 1909. But the 1971 version of this penny, it's more than just another coin. At first glance, the 1971 penny looks just like the rest. Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the front, designed by Victor David Brenner, along with the familiar motto, "In God We Trust," and the word "Liberty" to the left. The year, 1971, is stamped clearly on the right. Flip it over and you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, a feature that began in 1959 and continued for decades. But it's what lies beneath the surface, or rather, what sets some rare versions of this penny apart, that's captured the attention of coin collectors across the world. Let's break it down. There were three primary versions of the 1971 Lincoln penny: those minted in Philadelphia, with no mint mark; those from Denver, with a small D beneath the date; and special proof coins from San Francisco, marked with an S. Now, here's where things get exciting. First, let's talk about composition. The 1971 Lincoln penny was made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, a solid metal mix that gives the coin that rich reddish tone. But copper isn't just attractive, it's valuable. And because these coins were made before the metal composition changed in the 1980s, they already have a slight edge when it comes to intrinsic value. But the real magic comes with errors, proof coins, and mint condition grades. Imagine finding a penny that was mistakenly double struck at the mint, meaning the die hit it twice, slightly off-center each time. The result? A doubled image on the date or the lettering, like "Liberty" or "In God We Trust." These are called double die errors, and they're a collector's dream. Even more rare are the off-metal strikes, pennies mistakenly struck on a dime planchet or a foreign coin blank. Yes, these errors exist and can be incredibly valuable. A 1971 penny printed on the wrong metal? That's like a golden ticket for coin enthusiasts. Then there are the proof coins. These weren't meant for circulation at all. Minted in San Francisco, the 1971 proof pennies have a mirror-like finish and were produced using specially polished dies. They come in two main types, regular strike proofs and the rarest of them all, proof errors. If you come across a 1971 proof with sharp, frosted devices and deep mirror fields in flawless condition, you could be holding something quite special. Condition, of course, is key. Most 1971 pennies you'll find in circulation are scratched, dirty, and worn down, worth little more than 1 cent. But if you stumble upon a coin in mint state, especially with a high grade like MS-66 or MS-67, you're entering serious collector territory. These coins are virtually flawless. Their surfaces gleam, the strike is crisp, and every detail from Lincoln's hair to the tiny columns on the Lincoln Memorial is razor sharp, and color matters too. Red pennies, those that have maintained their bright coppery shine, are much more desirable than red-brown or brown coins. A 1971 Lincoln cent in perfect red mint condition with no signs of wear can fetch big money, but let's talk specifics. Out of the millions of 1971 pennies floating around, only a tiny fraction have survived in pristine condition. Even fewer contain rare mint errors. And just a handful combine both rarity and high grade to attract top dollar bids at auction, and that brings us to the heart of the story. One particular 1971 Lincoln penny, struck in exceptional quality, preserved in flawless condition, and certified as a near-perfect red mint specimen, stunned collectors when it appeared at auction. After intense bidding and expert authentication, this 1-cent coin, a coin most people would pass over without a second glance, sold for an unbelievable amount. How much? That tiny copper coin sold for an astonishing $48,000, yes, a single penny. $48,000. So, the next time you find a penny on the ground, in a drawer, or in your change from the store, take a closer look. That little coin just might be more than spare change. It could be a hidden fortune waiting to be discovered. We're talking about the 1979 Lincoln penny, a coin that seems ordinary on the surface but could hide extraordinary value beneath. And yes, this isn't a collector's fantasy or a rumor from an internet forum. This is real, and today, we're diving deep into the secrets behind this coin, what makes some versions incredibly rare, and why collectors are willing to pay shocking amounts of money for a single example. Let's start at the beginning. The Lincoln penny was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of President Abraham Lincoln's birth. His portrait, designed by Victor David Brenner, has stood the test of time and remains one of the most iconic designs in U.S. coinage history. Fast forward to 1979, it was a time of change in America. The economy was shifting, inflation was rising, and the cost of materials, like copper, was a real concern for the U.S. Mint. But the mint didn't stop producing pennies. In fact, in 1979, they made billions. Most of these coins were minted in Philadelphia, no mint mark, Denver, with a small D mint mark, and San Francisco, where proof coins were struck and marked with an S. At first glance, a 1979 penny might look just like any other. But numismatics, that's the study of coins, is all about the details. And the 1979 Lincoln penny has some fascinating surprises. Let's talk about errors. When we say a penny is valuable, we're not talking about any worn-out old coin you find under the couch. The value comes from condition and rarity, and sometimes, from mistakes. Minting errors can turn a regular coin into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. Some 1979 Lincoln pennies were struck with a double die, where parts of the design are imprinted twice due to a misalignment during production. This can result in noticeable doubling on the date or lettering, such as Liberty or In God We Trust. These are extremely rare and extremely desirable. Then there are off-center strikes, where the design is visibly misaligned. The more dramatic the error, the higher the value. Another incredible error is the broad strike, where the coin was minted without the collar that holds its shape, creating a distorted and stretched edge. These odd-looking coins might not seem valuable at first glance, but collectors love these minting mishaps. But even without errors, a 1979 penny can be worth serious money if it's in mint state condition. that means it shows no signs of wear and still has its original luster, sharp details, and vibrant color. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, and anything graded MS 65 or higher is considered high quality. Combine that with a bright red color, the natural tone of freshly minted copper, and you've got a coin that collectors would love to own. Then there are the proof coins from San Francisco. These weren't meant for general circulation. They were carefully struck for collectors using special dies and polished planchets. The result? A flawless finish with deep, mirror-like fields and frosted details. If you ever come across a 1979 penny with an S mint mark and it gleams like a mirror, you may be looking at one of these rare beauties, but let's not forget the hidden gems, the coins that slipped through the cracks at the mint with the wrong planchet, or a coin that was struck on a dime blank instead of a penny blank. These oddities are extremely hard to find and often only come to light when someone takes the time to closely examine every detail. So why does all of this matter? Because once in a while, a single 1979 penny with just the right mix of rarity, perfection, and mint error appears at auction, and when it does, it becomes a bidding war between collectors. And that's when the true value of these coins is revealed. Now, here's the part you've been waiting for. After everything we've talked about, the errors, the condition, the shine, the mint marks, one particular 1979 Lincoln penny, verified by experts, preserved in near-perfect condition, and featuring an ultra-rare error, made headlines when it sold at auction, and the final hammer price, that tiny, copper-colored coin, just 1 cent in face value, sold for an astonishing $49,000. That's right. 1 cent. $49,000. So the next time you find a penny lying around, don't ignore it. Flip it over. Look at the date. Check the condition. You never know when you might be holding a piece of American history, or a hidden fortune, right in the palm of your hand.